Well, if the expected result of intelligent explosion is existential doom, then our thinking must immediately shift to the quest for preventative solutions. And we would ask ourselves, is there a technique to prevent the expected result? Can a controlled explosion be engineered? Can be constructed? There's the control problem, a spatial principal agent problem that results from the development of artificial superintelligent agent is the focus of this video's analysis today. And I will try to categorize potential solutions for this problem into two major groups. The first one in terms of capability control, and the latter one in terms of motivation selection. And we will together look at a number of particular approaches within each group. We also make a brief overview of the hidden possibility of anthropic capture. If you believe that existential disaster will be the default disaster and will be the result of an intelligent explosion, we must immediately consider if, and if so, how this outcome may be prevented. Can a controlled detonation be achieved? Could we manipulate the variables that lead to an intelligent explosion in order to achieve a certain goal, or at the very least guarantee that the outcome falls into a category of generally acceptable outcomes? More specifically, how can the sponsor of a superintelligence project make sure that in the event the project is successful, the superintelligence it creates will achieve the sponsor's objectives? We call it the control issue, and this control issue can be split into two pieces. One element is general, and the other is specific to the current situation. The first part, what we will call the first principal agent problem, arises whenever some human entity, we will call it the principal, appoints another, that is, to the agent, to act in the former's interest. And this type of agency problem has been extensively studied by economists, especially. And it becomes relevant to our present concern if the people creating an AI are distinct from the people commissioning its creation. The project's owner or sponsor, which could be anything ranging from a single individual to humanity as a whole, might then worry that the scientists and programmers implementing the project will not act in the sponsor's best interest. Also, this type of agency problem could pose significant challenges to project sponsor. It's not a problem unique to intelligence amplification or AI projects. Principal agent problems of this sort are ubiquitous in human economic and political interactions, and there are many ways of dealing with them. For example, the risk that a disloyal employee will sabotage or subvert the project could be minimized through careful background checks of key personnel. The use of a good version control system for software projects and intensive oversight from multiple independent monitors and auditors. And of course, such safeguards come at a cost. They expand staffing needs, complicate personnel selection, hinder creativity, and stifle independent and critical thought, all of which could reduce the pace of progress. And these costs could be significant, especially for projects that have tight budgets or that perceive themselves to be in a close race, in a winner-takes-all competition. And in such situations, projects may skimp on procedural safeguards, creating possibilities for potentially catastrophic principal agent failures of the first type. The other part of the control problem is more specific to the context of an intelligent explosion. This is the problem that a project faces when it seeks to ensure that the superintelligent it is building will not harm the project's interest. This part also can be thought of as a principal agent problem, the second principal agent problem. And in this case, the agent is not a human agent operating on behalf of a human principal. Instead, agent is a superintelligent system. Whereas the first principal agent problem occurs mainly in the development phase, the second agency problem threatens to cause trouble mainly in the superintelligence's operational phase. Let's now talk about some hypothetical agent problems. The first principal agent problem would be, but we would call it human versus human, that is sponsor versus developer. It would occur mainly in the development phase, and standard management techniques will be applied to it. And the second principal agent problem, that is the control problem, will be human versus superintelligence, that is system project versus system. And it will occur mainly in operational and bootstrap phase. And this second agency problem poses an unprecedented challenge. Solving it will require new techniques. We have already considered some of the difficulties involved, like as we have seen, in particular, that the treacherous turn syndrome vitiates what might otherwise have seemed like a promising set of methods, ones that rely on observing an AI's behavior in its developmental phase and allowing the AI to graduate from a secure environment once it has accumulated a track record of taking appropriate actions. Other technologies can often be safety tested in the laboratory or in small field studies, and then rolled out gradually with the possibility of halting deployment if unexpected troubles arise. And their performance in preliminary trials helps us make reasonable inferences about their future reliability. And such behavioral methods are defeated in the case of superintelligence because of the strategic planning ability of general intelligence. Since the behavioral approach is unavailing, we must look for alternatives. And thereby we can divide potential control methods into two broad classes: capability control methods, and which aim to control the superintelligence, what can superintelligence do, and motivation selection methods, as I already mentioned, which aim to control what it wants to do. Some of the methods are compatible, while others represent mutually exclusive alternatives. And in this video, we canvass the main options. It's important to realize that some control method must be implemented before the system becomes superintelligent. It cannot be done after the system has obtained some power or decisive strategic advantage. The need to solve the control problem in advance and to implement the solution successfully in the very first system to attain superintelligence is the main part of what makes achieving a controlled detonation such a daunting challenge. Limiting what the superintelligence is capable of doing aims to stop unwanted results. And this might entail putting the superintelligence in a situation where it can't hurt anyone. For example, boxing methods, or where there are powerful incentives, that is, incentive methods to refrain from harming others. And additionally, it might entail inhibiting the superintelligence's intrinsic capabilities. The employment systems to automatically detect and respond to various types of confinement, failure, or attempted transgression, that is, tripwires, may also be included in capability control approaches. There are two categories of boxing techniques: physical containment and informational containment. The goal of physical containment is to keep the system inside a hypothetical or physical box, or to stop it from communicating with the outside environment other than through predetermined restricted output channels. And outside of that box, the boxed system would not have access to any physical manipulators. The creation of, say, physical contraptions that could escape the confines would be prevented by removing manipulators, such as robotic arms, for example, from inside the box. And for extra security, the system should be placed in a metal mesh to prevent it from transmitting radio signals, which might otherwise offer a means of manipulating electronic objects such as radio receivers in the environment. And note that, by the way, how easy it might have been to overlook the need for this precaution. One might naively have assumed that an agent without a manipulator could not affect the external world. But it might be possible for machine intelligence to generate radio waves even when it lacks access to the external manipulators simply by thinking. Once pointed out, this vulnerability can be patched by enclosing the system in a Faraday cage, but we are left wondering how many other similarly subtle vulnerabilities might exist. Each time we hear of a seemingly foolproof security design that has an unexpected flaw, we should prick our ears. These occasions grace us with the opportunity to abandon a life of overconfidence and resolve to become better by agents. Physical confinement has several advantages. For example, it is easy to implement. It can be applied to many machine intelligence architectures, even ones that were not initially designed with safety as an objective. It can be used in combination with most other control methods, and it seems unlikely to go wrong by backfiring. That is, while it might fail to ensure safety, it is unlikely to cause a catastrophe that would not otherwise have occurred. The main disadvantage of the physical confinement is that it reduces the functionality of the superintelligence. And another concern is that it might encourage a false sense of security. So this is avoidable if we regard physical confinement as icing on the cake rather than the main substance of our precautions. On the other hand, informational containment aims to restrict what information is allowed to exit the box, or which information, or what kind of information. We've already seen how a superintelligence that has access to an internet port such that it can message outside entities is potentially unsafe. Even if it starts out without access to physical actuators, it may use its information output channel to get human beings to do its bidding. And an obvious informational containment method is to bar the system from accessing communications networks. And unplugging an AI from the internet doesn't, however, ensure safety if there are one or more humans serving as the system's gatekeepers and remaining in communication with it. And during the development phase, the programmers serve as gatekeepers. During the operational phase, the system's owner might play this role. If the AI can persuade or trick a gatekeeper to let it out of the box, resulting in its gaining access either to the internet or directly to the physical manipulators, then the boxing strategy has failed. And human beings are not secure systems, especially not when pitched against the superintelligence shimmer and persuader. Also, routing the outbound communications of a machine intelligence to a human gatekeeper doesn't guarantee safety. It could serve as an auxiliary safety measure. There are precautions that might reduce the risk of the AI escaping through the gatekeeper. The AI could be allowed to communicate only via a low bandwidth teletype interface. This would make it slightly harder to psychologically manipulate the gatekeepers. And going further, the content of the output could be restricted, so that, for example, the AI would be constrained to giving single bit answers to yes or no questions. And the idea of building a question answering system will be examined further in my next video. And the limiting case of the boxing approach would be a system kept in a complete physical and informational isolation. Even if achievable, however, such an isolated system would be rather useless since it would have no effect on the external world. It might perhaps be thought that some scientific purpose could be served by creating a superintelligence and keeping it in isolation. By studying a self-contained model system, one could learn about its internal dynamics and its behavior patterns. But this would be an error. As soon as the system is observed, it ceases to be informationally isolated. Information can be transmitted not only via messages that AI sends out through a designated output channel, but also via any observation an outsider or people makes of some causal consequence of the AI's working, direct or indirect, its power consumption and its CPU and memory usage, its computational states, or indeed any trace left behind after it has been shut down. An AI anticipating that it might be observed in any of these ways could strategically adopt behaviors designed to influence the hypothesized observers. For example, the AI could malfunction in whichever way would most increase the probability that it will ultimately be reactivated, or that another superintelligence will be created with goals similar to its own. Incentive approaches include putting an agent in a situation where it discovers practical justifications for acting in a way that advances the interest of the principal. Consider a billionaire who uses his fortune to set up a large charitable foundation. And once created, the foundation may be powerful, more powerful than most individuals, including its founder, who might have donated most of his wealth. And to control the foundation, the founder lays down its purpose in articles of incorporation and bylaws and appoints a board of directors sympathetic to his cause. And these measures constitute a form of motivation selection since they aim to shape foundation's preferences. But even if such attempts to customize the organizational internals fail, the foundation's behavior will remain circumscribed by its social and legal milieu. The foundation would have an incentive to obey the law, for example, lest it be shut down or fined. It would have an incentive to offer its employees acceptable pay and working conditions and to satisfy external stakeholders. Whatever its final goals, the foundation thus has instrumental reasons to conform its behavior to various social norms. Might one not hope that a machine superintelligence would likewise be hemmed in by the need to get along with other actors with which it shares the stage? Though this might seem like a straightforward way of dealing with a control problem, it's not free of obstacles. In particular, it presupposes a balance of power. Legal or economic sanctions cannot restrain an agent that has a decisive strategic advantage. Social integration can therefore not be relied upon as a control method in fast or medium takeoff scenarios that feature a winner-takes-all dynamic. How about in multipolar scenarios, wherein several agencies emerge post-transition with comparable levels of capability? Unless the default trajectory is one with a slow takeoff, achieving such a power distribution may require a careful orchestrated ascent wherein different projects are deliberately synchronized to prevent any one of them from ever pulling ahead of the pack. Even if a multipolar outcome does result, social integration is not a perfect solution. By relying on social integration to solve the control problem, the principal risks sacrificing a large portion of his potential influence, her potential influence. And also a balance of power might prevent a particular AI from taking over the world. That AI will still have some power to affect outcomes. And if that power is used to promote some arbitrary final goal, say maximizing paperclip production, it's probably not being used to advance the interest of the principal. Imagine our hypothetical billionaire endowing a new foundation and allowing its mission to be set by a random forest generator, not a species level threat, but surely a wasted opportunity. A related but importantly different idea is that an AI, by interacting freely in society, would acquire new human-friendly final goals. Some such process of socialization takes place in us humans. We internalize norms and ideologies, and we come to value other individuals for their own sakes and consequences of our experiences with them. But this is not a universal dynamic present in all intelligent systems. As discussed earlier, many types of agents in many situations will have convergent instrumental reasons not to permit change in their final goals. And capability control through social integration and balance of power relies upon diffuse social forces rewarding and penalizing the AI. Another type of intensive method would involve creating a setup wherein the AI can be rewarded and penalized by the project that creates it, and thereby incentivized to act in the interest of the principal. And to achieve this, the AI would be placed in a surveillance context that allows its behavior to be monitored and evaluated, either manually or by some automated process. the AI would bring about some outcome it desires and that a negative evolution would fail to do so. And theoretically, the reward could be the fulfillment of some convergent instrumental goal. And without knowing anything specific about the AI's motivation system, however, it might be difficult to celebrate the reward mechanism. For example, we could end up with an AI that would be willing to take extreme risks for the sake of a small chance of eventually obtaining control of a large share of the universe. It could be expensive to offer the AI a higher expected utility as reward for cooperation than the AI could hope to achieve by defecting and trying to escape. A better alternative might be to combine the incentive method with the use of motivation selection to give the AI a final goal that makes it easier to control. Suppose that an AI were designed to have as its final goal that a particular red button inside a command bunker never be pressed. Since the pressing of the button is disvalued intrinsically and not because of its causal consequences, the button could be completely inert. It could be made of Play-Doh. Furthermore, it's irrelevant whether the AI can ever know whether the button had been pressed. What is essential is that the AI itself believes that the button will more likely remain unpressed if the AI continuously acts in the principal's interest than if it rebels. And the refinements themselves to this setup are possible. Instead of trying to endow AI with a final goal that refers to a physical button, one could build an AI that places final value on receiving a stream of cryptographic rewards tokens. These will be sequences of numbers serving as keys to ciphers that would have been generated before the AI was created and that would have been built into its motivation system. And these special number sequences will be extremely desirable to the AI, constituting a special kind of reward token that the AI couldn't attain through wireheading. The keys will be stored in a secure location where they could be quickly destroyed if the AI ever made an attempt to seize them. So long as the AI cooperates, the keys are doled out at a steady rate. The AI could then be given a bounded utility function and matters could be arranged so that the AI will get, for example, 99% of its maximum utility from the first reward token and 99% of its remaining utility potential from the second reward token, and so on. By keeping the discount rate high and by transmitting reward tokens to the AI at a reasonably high rate, one will dissuade the AI from attempting to carry out long-term plans that will increase the expected number of reward tokens in the distant future at the expense of some risk that its reward stream will be cut shorter, that the next reward token will be cancelled and destroyed. And if the AI always believes that defecting will incur at least, say, a 2% risk of forfeiting the next reward token, whereas cooperating will reduce the risk of forfeiting the next reward token to below 1%, then a utility maximizing AI would always cooperate. What might go wrong with such an incentive scheme? One possibility is that AI will not trust a human being operator to deliver the promised rewards. The track record of human reliability is something other than a straight line of unerring perfection. They would reasonably worry that the operator will change his or her mind or raise the performance bar or fail to recognize that the AI has done its part. The AI would also worry about the operator becoming incapacitated. The combined risk of such failure might exceed the risk of attempting to seize control of the reward mechanism. And even a boxed AI possessing the panoply of superpowers is a strong force. Say, for an AI that is not boxed to begin with, hijacking the human governed reward mechanism may be like taking candy from a baby. And another problem with the incentive scheme is that it presupposes that we can tell whether the outcomes produced by the AI are in our interest. And as later videos I will elaborate this presupposition is not innoxious. And a full assessment of the feasibility of incentive methods would also have to take into account a range of other factors, including some esoteric considerations that might conceivably make such methods more viable than a preliminary analysis would suggest. Particularly, the AI may face ineliminable indexual uncertainty if it could not be sure that it doesn't inhabit a computer simulation, and this epistemic predicament may radically influence the AI's deliberations. Limiting a system's ability to reason or obtain information is another potential capability control strategy. This could be accomplished by putting the AI on outdated or memory-constrained hardware. Information ingress might also be constrained in a boxed system. And these types of AI stunts would reduce the utility of the AI. And this presents a problem for the method. Too little stunting, and the AI might be clever enough to figure out how to become more intelligent and so take over the world. Too much stunting and the AI becomes just another piece of stupid software. The challenge of how to produce a controlled detonation is not solved by a substantially stunted AI. An intelligence explosion would still be feasible and would likely be set off by another system, possibly at a little later time. One might think that it would be safer to build a superintelligence provided it is only given data about some narrow domain of facts. For example, one might build an AI that lacks sensors and that has preloaded into its memory only facts about petroleum engineering or peptide chemistry, for example. But if the AI is superintelligent, if it has a superhuman level of general intelligence, such data deprivation doesn't guarantee safety. And there are several reasons for this. First, the notion of information being about a certain topic is generally problematic. Any piece of information can, in principle, be relevant to any topic whatsoever, depending on the background information of a reasoner. And furthermore, a given dataset contains information not only about the domain from which the data was collected, but also about various circumstantial facts. A shrewd man looking over a knowledge base that is nominally about peptide chemistry might infer things about a wide range of topics. The fact that certain information is included and other information is not could tell an AI something about the state of human science. The methods and the instruments available to study peptides, the fabrication technologies used to make these instruments, and the nature of the brains and societies that conceive the studies and the instruments. And it might be that a superintelligence could correctly surmise a great deal from what seem to dull-witted human minds, meager scraps of evidence. Even without any designated knowledge base at all, a sufficiently superior mind might be able to learn much simply introspecting on the working of its own psyche, the design choices reflected in its source code, the physical characteristics of its circuitry. And perhaps a superintelligence could even deduce much about the likely properties of the world a priori. It might imagine the consequences of different possible laws of physics, what kind of planets would form, what kind of intelligent life would evolve, what kind of societies will develop, what kind of methods to solve the control problem would be attempted, how these methods could be defeated. And for these reasons, it will be imprudent to rely on information deprivation as the main check on a superintelligence's power. Some forms of stunting, however, including limiting hardware capacity and preventing the development of specific cognitive faculties, might find use as auxiliary control methods in the developmental phase. They could be used, for example, to regulate the rate of capacity gain in an intermediary AI and to allow tests to be run at different levels of capability short of full throttled superintelligence. A tripwire is a device that checks the system diagnostics and perhaps without its awareness and shuts down the system if it notes any indications of potential harmful activity. Then, before restarting the AI, programmers can review recordings of the shady behavior at their convenience and make modifications to the AI's surroundings or code base or source code. If they determine that the issue is sufficiently pervasive, they can opt to abandon the entire endeavor. Tripwires differ from incentive methods in that they do not rely on the system being aware of the consequences of engaging in forbidden activities. Tripwires are more closely related to stunting methods. Like stunting, tripwires could be used as a temporary safeguard, providing a degree of protection during the development phase. And in principle, tripwire can also be used during the operational phase, particularly for a boxed system. However, the ability of tripwires to constrain a full-fledged superintelligence must remain very much in doubt, since it would be hard for us to assure ourselves that such an agent could not find ways to subvert any tripwire device by the human intellect. And as an adjunct safety measure in the development phase, so tripwires are important. It would be good practice for the AI designers to codify their expectations about how the system is supposed to function, and then to circumscribe the AI with tripwires that would be activated if any of these expectations is violated. And to make the test more stringent, honeypots could be strategically placed to create temptations for a malfunctioning AI to commit some easily observable violation. For example, if an AI has been designed in such a way that it is supposed not to want to access the internet, in that case, a fake Ethernet port could be installed just to see if the AI tries to use it. And it should be emphasized that the value of a tripwire depends not only on the mechanism itself, but also critically on how a project reacts when a tripwire is triggered. And if the programmers or project managers impatient to make progress, simply switch the system back on again, or if they do so after making some token modification to prevent the tripwire being triggered on the next run, then no safety has been gained even if the tripwire itself works exactly as intended.